welcome to Health Issues. I'm your host, Chris Sylvain, and couldn't be more excited today. I've been excited all week. We have one of the few, and I will say that it's not that many in the country, probably in the world, but we have one of the few, and definitely one of the few in New Orleans. We have a great nutrition researcher, bona fide. We have Dr. Lauri Byerely. Thank you, Dr.
Byerely, howdy.
Yeah, she's an associate professor of physiology, actually.
In the physiology
department, but she has a PhD in nutrition. She's a registered dietitian. Mm-hmm. For all of the dietitians out there, she's a registered dietitian, and she also has a PhD in nutritional sciences. Am I correct?
Correct.
We're good.
Yes.
How did you get there? Just for a few minutes. How did we get there?
In nutritional sciences?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I got my degrees a long time ago, and I was interested in nutrition since I was fairly young.
Really?
I did a science fair project in 8th grade.
Oh, that's what it was.
That got me interested in nutrition. Yeah.
Oh, wow. And 8th grade teacher, she just got you excited about it, huh?
Well, no, I just happened to pick this project. There was an ad on TV about and actually on the radio, on All Brand being such a fabulous food that would cure everything. This was a few years ago. So we fed it to some mice, and it didn't. They died. So anyway, I became interested in nutrition with that. Wow, and at that point in time, we had to do science fair projects.
You had to do science? And
yeah.
How many kids do science fair projects now? I guess they don't even, I don't know.
Well, it depends if it's required or not.
Yeah.
We're going through that process with my daughter.
It's amazing. And we were talking earlier, I mean, out of all of the sciences and everything else that's going on, you know, I feel personally, I'll raise my hand on this, I cannot think of a science, we're looking at as far as for PhDs, that has such an effect on today's world in 2013, I would say, than those that have nutrition researchers. I'll take all of the pharmacists and dietitians and physicians and physicists and physiologists and everybody else on what affects, because everybody eats, you know, so we appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Really good. You're from here?
No, I'm not. I'm originally from Peoria, Illinois.
Peoria, Illinois?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Right in the Midwest, corn.
Yep. Right in the middle of the state, yeah.
That's right. Corn,
but I've
wheat.
been to lots of places.
Lots of places?
Yeah.
Oh, all right, good. So what's big out there? Corn, wheat, what else, I guess?
Corn's the big one. Corn and soybean.
Corn and soybean. That's right. Yeah. Corn's in everything.
Yes. Corn is. Corn oil.
Corn oil.
Yeah, high fructose corn syrup. we use lots of different parts.
Ethanol.
Yes, ethanol.
Subsidized.
Yes, so is the high fructose corn syrup, and I think corn oil too. All of them are subsidized.
That's another show.
Yeah.
That's fun. Well, we're here talking about nutrition, about eating, and let's first start with this concept. First, let's give us a rundown on this idea of. Let's start physiology, visceral fat. We can talk about visceral fat, the belly fat. It's not the thick fat that's around the outside, but it's the fat on the inside, though. But you can check it by the way.
Like the beer bellies.
The beer bellies.
You think of it, yeah.
That's right.
Although if you look around at our youth, you'll see quite a few of them have, you know, that visceral fat, and I'm sure they're not drinking beer.
A 12-pack in high school. 8th grade.
Yeah.
So how does it happen? Let's talk about your thoughts on visceral fat.
What causes the fat to be deposited there? I don't, you know, I'm not an expert in this, and I'm not sure that we really understand physiologically what causes it to be uniquely deposited there. Okay. But for women who have it there, that does cause them to be at a higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes, and men for type 2 diabetes. Right. So it's the pear shape versus the apple shape. So if you have more of the apple shape, and that visceral fat that you're talking about,
got it.
Health-wise is not as good for us.
It's not a good thing because they have these adipocytokines, these inflammatory things pop out.
They come with it, yes.
They come with it.
Yeah, with adipose tissue does make inflammatory mediators.
And
but what's the cart and horse? I'm not, you know, not really sure at this point.
All right, now, so but this fat is different from here.
Yes, not all fat deposits are the same. So for women, they can have it in their hips. And actually, when you're pregnant and when you lactate, women will tend to put it on in their hips. And when you breastfeed during lactation, that you can take it off there. Otherwise, it isn't an easy spot to take off the fat, whereas you can add and decrease your visceral fat. But how to target a specific fat depot to remove it, that's not so easy.
That's kind of challenging.
Yeah.
It is.
People will get rich doing that. And of course, they tried to do liposuction.
Yeah,
and
just pull it out.
And I remember back in the 80s, they tried to take obese people and remove massive amounts of adipose tissue, and they died because it is a shock to the physical system.
It's a lot we don't understand.
Yeah, about the whole thing, yeah.
It's amazing. It really, really is. And just to find it. But so waist circumference becomes a great indicator of the visceral fat. Just taking the tape measure and seeing what's there.
Yeah, and they want your waist measurement to be, if you multiply it by 2, less than your height. And that's kind of a scary thought, that there are people out there where if they multiply their waist by 2,
it's more than their height.
It's more than their height.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And that's an easy measure to do it than to figure out your body mass index, because we also use that as an indicator, of how much adipose tissue you have. Now, and the problem with that one, though, is that if you are an athlete or a bodybuilder,
that's right, like
your BMI may be, it may indicate you're obese, but you're not, because you have so much muscle mass that's why your weight relative to your height is so much heavier than your height.
Yeah, but waist circumference, it just kind of carries all the way through. It kind of gives a good idea of the visceral fat, the bioactive. I always call it like it lives.
You know, when I went to school, BMI was becoming the thing to use, but you always have to remember that obesity, and if somebody is overweight, you also have to look for those excess fat depots.
Got it.
Which isn't difficult to do.
Visually, you could just...
Yeah, visually. Yeah. So, what's their weight? And in this case, we like to use BMI, but also visually look. Do they have excessive fat?
That body
depots?
Shape.
Yeah.
So, because weight in and of itself is not necessarily a problem. Yeah, I mean, you can weigh 600 pounds if you're 12 feet tall or whatever. I mean, it's, the thing of it is that if you're muscular and...
Well, you can take that bodybuilder that's 6 feet tall but weighs 200, 250.
Right.
300, but they may have, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, for example.
Right.
And you're thinking, yeah.
Yeah.
You're thinking, those
Joking.
kind.
Yeah, but that's it. I mean, because 6% body fat, and they're lifting weights or whatever, and so somebody said they're overweight if they just looked at their weight. Man, you weigh too much, but that's not the truth. So body shape becomes more important.
Yeah. The military is a good one. They wrestle with this because they have a lot of people that are overweight, but then they also have guys that work out, and they can get caught in those recommendations. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Now, but this is the thing. All right, the news story or whatever. Some foods are preferential for the...
I don't know that there's been any studies to show that if you consume this one food, you're going to get visceral fat, because we don't eat just one food.
True.
And you're never going to really do that study.
You can't do it.
No, it's kind of like cigarette smoking. You can't.
You can't. Yeah, that you can't do. But I guess the idea of, I'm throwing this out, we're going back to fructose, obviously. Yeah. Fructose is metabolized differently.
So fructose is absorbed. It goes to the rest of the body. It doesn't go to the liver, or it goes through the liver. So if glucose is absorbed, it'll go to the liver, and it also have an impact on the pancreas to cause insulin secretion, whereas fructose is not going to cause the secretion of insulin. And then it's going to circulate and come back to the liver, where it's going to have its effect.
So we were talking about earlier, so fructose, and let's deal with that, fructose and glucose. So fructose, and the way it comes in through non-natural sources, just high fructose corn syrup or regular sugar. Let's talk about the differences there. Tell me about it.
So what the difference between high fructose corn syrup is and Glucose.
Well, I was saying, say, fructose, whether it's in high fructose corn syrup or regular sugar, is different from, say, glucose by itself.
Yeah, we generally, in the foods we don't, I'm trying to think, do we have just pure glucose?
No.
We don't really. It comes in the form of sucrose.
Right.
Maltodextrose would be glucose, but it's molecules put together.
Right.
And you know, one other thing that we need to add in here is when you're getting that, you're depositing fat.
Right.
You're consuming more calories than what you've burned.
Right.
And we need to remember that in this light,
Got it.
that's happening. And I am not aware of any studies, but they may be out there because, again, I'm not an expert and I haven't kept up with the literature that show that it's the fructose or those drinks that causes the visceral fat if you were to consume just those in excess. It's not easy, I guess, is what I'm trying to come down to, because we eat carbohydrate, fat, and protein, and alcohol. Some people consume alcohol as their calorie sources.
Right.
So if you eat too many calories, does the body pick just the fructose to deposit it and make the visceral fat? It may, but we also know that when you eat fat, fat tends to be deposited. That's why I'm sort of hedging, because I'm not sure that the real studies have been done to show that if you had low fat, high fat, and fructose. And I guess my feeling is that if you're consuming those kinds of products that are rich in high fructose corn syrup, these are products in which we have manufactured. They are not fruit, for example. And if you're consuming those, are you consuming inadequate? Is your diet okay? Is it contain the appropriate amount of calories for what you're what you're burning in your activity for that day? And so this may be more of a reflection of your poor nutrition. And in that, an excessive intake of calories, which then cause an abdominal fat.
I'm good. No, whatever I hear you. I guess the challenge becomes, say we look at Tom Farley and what he's trying to do in New York with the sodas. And the challenge with sweets, why sweets and high fructose corn syrup or regular sugar, what makes it bad as opposed to just eating an orange or, just wheat bread or something like that. What's the difference? Because some people would say, well, hey, if you had 100 calories, what's the difference whether it's in a soda or if I ate, some spinach? What's the difference between that? That becomes the issue.
Well, and so there's a whole bunch of things tied up in what you've just said. Okay, so we want to compare those. If we're looking at just pure calorie to calorie, there may not be any. But you look at the spinach has a lot more things in it that are good for you. For example, folate, fiber, and other kinds of phytochemicals that are present that the soda is not going to have. In my mind, too, the other problem with the soda, and one of the things that in New York they're trying to control, is you are given a soda, they're trying to limit the huge sodas, so 16 ounces. Do you really need 16 ounces? How many calories is 16 ounces? And does that would substitute for other calories that you should have, the spinach, and you tend to overconsume it.
Got it.
And that adds weight. Look at, if you're faced with drinking the soda, eating the spinach, or having the orange, which one are you going to pick?
Soda.
Yeah, it's sugar, it's sweet. How long? Man has always been fascinated with sugar for a very long time, and sweetness.
Exactly.
So in my mind, that's more of the crux of it. We have to educate people to not take those and to pick other things, instead of, the soda. and these huge amounts of sodas.
Right.
I think it has helped that McDonald's is no longer, I hate to pick on McDonald's, I mean, they're all doing it, supersizing.
Right.
You know.
So people would do better eating
in moderation.
Okay.
And variety of foods.
A variety of foods.
Yeah.
That's the key. So, so the idea though, and just to go back to that, and then fructose though, and I think people don't eat straight glucose, but that's been an argument. I think, you know, out in San Francisco or whatever, you know, researchers are arguing with the soda industry about soda. Is it that bad?
It's sort of, you know, in my mind, what it comes down is we have to be responsible ourselves.
Okay.
So is it the soda industry that's responsible for what we drink, or are we responsible for what we drink? And are sodas bad for us? Well, if sodas are taking the place of other important foods within our diet, or adding calories on top of what we already eat, they're not good for us. If you were to consume them once in a while or in moderation, you know, what's the matter with having that?
Right.
But we don't tend to do that. I think a lot of people drink them in excessive amounts.
And the why then, obviously fructose is not toxic because we have fructose in apples and oranges.
Right, and the amount that's there, though, is going to be less than I think what you find in the soda. And again, at least in my mind, in my opinion, is that it's not the fructose that's bad for us, it's the foods that we find the processed fructose in. So the sodas that we need to limit and not have. I mean, some people are having a couple of them a day. And that becomes, and then they substitute for foods that are good for us, and that's not good.
And that's not good because there are foods that are the way they're, and I guess that's the challenge, you know, what happens inside the body.
Yeah.
Once that particular substance goes in the body, then what's next?
Yeah, and they're easy to drink. Sodas are easy to drink, and you can drink more of them without realizing it, how many calories, because they don't have any bulk or anything to them.
Right, and I think that was Dr. Bray was saying that they're add-on calories. It's not like, it's like if you drink sodas, it's not like you stop drinking other things or stop eating other things. Whatever you're eating when you drink sodas, that's just an extra 200, 300 calories.
Eat quick, easy, yes.
Quick, easy, and you dump it right on in.
Yeah.
And but let's even go back to this idea of I think I keep going back to the metabolism of fructose and glucose. Not that we eat pure glucose, all right, but just to make the point that fructose doesn't raise insulin.
No.
Okay. And so that's why they thought it was a great product at first.
Well, and especially for diabetics.
Right. It's like, hey, you can get sweet stuff and it doesn't raise your blood sugar.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah.
But then it goes in and, you know, the liver, if the liver can't handle it, it just turns it into fat.
Well,
Is that correct?
It can burn some of it too. And this is where we get into the what are your activities and where are you in the energy balance
exactly
equation.
But I guess, so like if it's more, so if you know, a big gulp of soft drink, if it's more than what your body can, more than what you're actively doing at the time, you're kind of couch potato sitting there watching the Saints game or whatever. We're watching the Saints game, we got popcorn, we got some chips, we're drinking a big gulp drink, no activity or anything else like that.
Is the fructose going to go to the fat? Most definitely the fat from the chips will go to the fat, okay, because you're going to tend to store fat. When you eat fat, you tend to store it, and when you need it, then you're going to mobilize it and use it.
Okay, so
and not burn it. So in this case, if you consume more calories than you need, you got to put that energy someplace.
Okay.
Is it the fructose that is picked to do that? Don't know. Probably it's a mixture of the different carbohydrate sources. If the body doesn't need it, it's going to convert it into fat and store it.
This is a question. So, say if it's a whole grain, as opposed to, say, the fructose, is the fructose more likely to become fat if it's more same 100 calories?
Well, I wish life was that easy. I know. It's not that. Yeah,
the hard
that's
questions.
the problem.
It's like Jeopardy. You know what I mean?
I know.
Yeah, we just throw the hard ones out. Okay, we're good. Let's stay there. Let's move on. All right. But I guess the whole thing of it is the end result. What we're saying is that we're sitting there at the Saints game. At home, because the Saints game, you're jumping up and down. Well, at home, you jump. That's activity, jumping up and down.
It is.
You know.
Yeah, you should jump up and down. Don't just stay seated.
Don't just stay seated.
Yeah, you'll burn more calories jumping up and down.
That's
than
right.
being
Marcus Colson, catch the ball, catch the ball. You know what I mean? So you're sitting there and you're eating, but definitely the sweets and the fatty foods, the fried foods.
They taste great, don't they? Make you want to eat more, don't they?
Well,
yeah.
Particularly if they're winning, huh?
Yeah.
Or if they're losing.
If they're not, yeah, you're losing them.
No
You're eating them
what.
because I'm depressed. They're not winning. I got to eat more.
Yeah.
And then add salt on top of it.
Ah,
Yeah.
that's a whole.
A little bit of crunch.
Oh wow.
Tastes good, huh?
That's a whole nother world.
Oops, we just ate too many calories, didn't we?
Lord. But that's what happens, you know. And we spend all of the money on health care.
Yeah.
But people, and that's what people, I hear it all the time. People want to know, well, why can't I eat that? Because the soda industry, you know, and not to beat them up. Well, they need to be beat up. All right. Again, the processed food industry is constantly shoving these things, but they're not telling us the risks that are involved.
Well, I think that's where we need to educate ourselves. We need to be smart consumers. You know, it's just like anything you go buy. You go buy a car. Do you do some homework before you go buy the car? We don't do that with food that much, do we?
Yeah, but who do we ask?
Well, you can always start with a nutrition label. Every processed food has a nutrition label on it, and it's amazing the information that's on there, and what you can find out by just reading the label.
Okay, but let's stop there real quick.
Yeah.
All right. We go to the nutrition label.
Yeah.
Okay, and it tells us the amount of sugars that's in the product, but it doesn't tell us where the sugar came from. In other words, if
it does, though. It's on the ingredient list. So
there we go. Okay.
It may not be as intuitive. Right. Yeah, it doesn't sort of hit you.
Yeah, because fruit has a certain amount of sugar.
Yeah.
And then the cola has a certain amount of sugar. If we look at it equivalently, all right, I guess the point of it is that how many people can look at the ingredients of a label and to be able to differentiate whether it's a good ingredient or a bad ingredient?
That's probably where we have done a poor job. Probably not a lot.
I think you need a good biochemistry course.
No, we just need more nutrition education out there. You know, and a great Michelle Obama was very interested when President Obama took office, that one of her goals was going to be to get kids to move and better education. So we now have this USDA super tracker, and it's a great website to go learn about some of those kinds of things.
That's right.
But we have to go seek out that information.
Right.
And so there probably are other better ways that we could begin to integrate nutrition education into things to teach people.
But I've never seen, and even with me, man, I love Michelle Obama's program, the Let's Move and everything else like that, but I've never seen anything targeted towards those ingredients. I just I've never seen, and to me, as you're saying, that if we take out the sodium, that's a big one right on the label. The fat, I mean, it kind of, because you don't know where the fat's coming from. If you kick out the trans fats, I think that gets complicated, but at least it's easier. But if the issue is refined foods and sugars, that we have to go to the ingredients.
Yeah, you have to go to the ingredient list.
And hey, I'm a pharmacist. You know, the amount of study needed to understand these ingredients to me is huge.
Yeah.
I'm talking about somebody with, I don't care how much education that they have. Like I say, there's very few PhDs in nutrition out here. Rarely. So how many people can look at, you know, aspartame, saccharose, you know.
What are they all?
No, wait a minute. No, wheat, it's made of wheat, but they didn't say whole wheat, so we don't know what it is. You know, the
it's
sugars.
Very confusing.
No, it says brown sugar.
Yeah.
But
or molasses.
Or molasses, or whatever, you know. But think of it, I always talk about one of the most popular bread has as much sugar in it as a Chips Ahoy cookie, and it's a wheat bread. It's full of sugar. It's just like a Chips Ahoy cookie, and people, and it's not whole wheat. It's only a little whole wheat. It's mainly refined wheat, and people are eating it saying, "I'm eating my wheat bread." You know?
Yeah, well, and it may say it's made of wheat, and if you look at the ingredient list, it's not really whole wheat.
Right.
Yeah,
it's
very confusing for consumers. I agree with you.
We need you on the show. Let's see if we can just do this over. And, I mean, it's so much information. There's just no way we can just kind of grab it. But let's deal with some big ones as we close. We have a couple of more minutes. But high fructose corn syrup and sugar. Out of the foods we need to avoid or stay away from as much, would they be at the top of the list, or would it be, what would be at the top of the list? Of
things that we need to avoid?
Avoid or back off on.
You know, I can think of, instead of doing it as avoid, there's things that we need to put at the top of the list, such as fruits and vegetables and whole grains. And when we do that, and we're getting our food and our calories from that, we should be getting less from these processed foods that we've been talking about, in which we do have refined sugars added to them in the form of like high fructose corn syrup that contains slightly more fructose than sugar does. You know, we even have honey. We haven't talked about honey because that has a lot more fructose in it too.
We'll do a whole nother thing on honey. I'm a honey fan, but I'll tell you about that later. Okay, great.
And fat. So if you're eating more natural foods and eating a variety of them in moderation, you will be doing much better than to eat more of those processed foods that contain these ingredients that you're talking about.
So in other words, we fill up on the good stuff.
Yeah. You know, that I don't know that a lot of people would say that that's the good stuff. To me, that's the good stuff. I love it. But some people would say, well, you're taking away the good stuff. You know, they like the processed foods. And, you know, the cookies, the candies, the
good, bad,
sodas, and even like the breads that you're talking about.
Yeah, and we think, you know, but I guess you're right, and that's why America, we can't do a good job on diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, and we hadn't even talked about the gut yet. Wait, that is even, we only have 5 seconds and we hadn't talked about the gut, microbes, the whole bit about the gut. There's so much more, but we need education.
Yes, we need more nutrition education.
And, I mean, the website, it does, the Let's Move website, Michelle Obama's website.
The Super Tracker is another, or My Plate.
My Plate. I think it's solid. We need more PhDs in nutrition.
Yes, that'd be great.
Hey, I'm Chris Sylvain with Health Issues. Catch us on the web and YouTube particularly now, and we're loading them up on YouTube. Just YouTube Chris Sylvain. We have a new show time, 7 in the morning on Friday, 7 in the evening on Fridays. Thank you. Fight as hard as you can. Eat the right stuff. Thank you so much. Have a great day.